Ladies and gentlemen, ATDF everything in that shelf presentation. You're now rocking with TDF everything. Spoiled Rotten.
Spoiler alert.
Welcome back, everybody.
Hey.
It's me, Daniel,
And this is Ben.
on Spoiled Rotten.
On that shelf.
Boom. Well, this is episode 3, the friendly type. Almost got it wrong. Of Moon Knight, by the way. Yes.
The friendly type of Moon Knight. Yeah.
Yeah, we're still, well, I just meant we are still spoiling Moon Knight. It's just not episode 3 randomly. It's episode 3 of Moon Knight. Well, so this starts off with Layla getting her fake passport. Gotta be honest, the first time I watched it, I was like, oh, it's nice of her mom to do that, but I'm assuming it's not her mom.
I legit thought it was her mom as well.
Yeah,
I
don't
legit
know.
did. I don't know why. I just did.
Yeah, something about it, I'm like, yeah, it's her mom, but I think it's
it's-
just someone who knows her and likes her.
Yeah, I it's definitely me projecting. I'm like, oh yeah, that looks like a person that would be of the age of a mother to Layla
Yeah.
and having a very friendly back and forth.
I liked their chemistry together a lot. I think the two important things about this scene for me, I'm sure people found other important things.
Yeah.
One, she says that the flat that Stephen was in is like minutes away from where Mark and her used to live.
Yeah, like 20 minutes away.
Yeah, I couldn't remember the number, but she said 20 minutes or something.
Yeah.
She hasn't been back to Egypt in 10 years.
Mhm.
That's kind of played on throughout the episode. That
Mhm.
She's not welcome there, even though it didn't really seem like that was an issue for her, but
Yeah.
I'm sure that'll pay off later. And
Yeah.
the other big thing for this episode is planting the seed about her relationship with her dad and how just how she feels about her dad, how her dad obviously believed in her and maybe taught her some skills that aren't the best, but still made her the resourceful person we know now.
A little bit of a Shang-Chi situation going on there. Dad's
Well, I would-
teaching questionable life skills that actually come in handy. Good stuff.
Sure.
I like it. Good
Uh,
backstory. It's very rich. I'm really looking to see what happens with Layla's character for sure.
Yes, so am I.
Mhm.
Because there's a scene later where I'm like, huh, all right. That's interesting. Yeah, well, Harrow, he has found Amit, but I guess now's the digging part. I kind of
Yep.
thought like he'd find her or find the tomb and just be good to go, but he's got some digging to do.
Yeah, I assume there'd be like some sort of cane involvement where it's like, I'm going to touch the cane to this spot
Mhm.
and then
Yep.
chant something. But you're
That's-
right. It's just like good old
gotta
slave labor
s-
digging.
Yeah, just gotta put in some elbow grease and dig those holes.
Same way the pyramids were built. Just
Yeah.
dig those holes.
No
Unfortunately,
magic there.
rough. Yeah, no magic there. Just lots of suffering.
But not more
Mhm.
importantly, also important is they're like, yeah, Mark Spector is following you, and he's like, yeah, I don't care. I found Amit. She's here.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, not that he ever looked worried, but Harrow really comes across throughout the whole episode as very confident that he's
Oh yeah.
gonna get shit done. So good for him.
Oh yeah.
Uh,
Oh yeah.
what's the
He's
next-
his character is just really intriguing to me.
Mhm.
Especially the
It's
way
confidence.
Yeah.
I feel like
it's the confidence, it's knowing people, it's that ability of like later on when we talk about Layla again, it's like how he just inherently knows things, and you're just like,
Mhm.
that will catch anyone off guard, right? I don't believe in a lot of psychic abilities, but if someone said like, hey, this is your greatest insecure, I'm like, tell me more. I will be like, tell me my soul, tell me my future, because I'm like, on that one off chance that this person knows what they're
I mean,
doing.
I
I'm
feel like we
okay.
know that Harrow has eyes and ears everywhere, but
Yeah.
he also does have a magical cane, so he's got some magic in his back pocket that he hasn't fully used yet.
Yep.
Yeah. So here's the part that I find confusing.
Mhm.
It's Mark running up on these guys who are killing who we can only assume is his informant, but I didn't really understand what what the decision was to jump so far ahead in terms of like I don't actually know what he's doing. He says the line, "Oh, I was going to talk to that guy," but it's like last time we saw you, you were looking pretty worse for wears and like drunk in your apartment. Now you're
Mhm.
kind of just up and at him, and I feel like we missed a part there. I mean, and I understand that if this were a movie, then you kind of just go with the punches. But it seems like in a show you'd want to keep digging into the characters. It seemed like a missed opportunity to me to watch him
Yeah.
operate, because I just felt like I don't know who these people are. I don't know how he like yeah, like it seemed weird, because if he had a meeting place, then it's weird that those three people had such a like intense reaction to that person being there. And so
Mhm.
I'm led being like, well, who are they? And he keeps coming for them, even though they
Yeah.
can't really help him with any information. So I was just like, oh, interesting choice to just jump ahead like that. I
Yep.
thought it they missed something there to kind of give us some more information.
At this point, I think that is clearly more of a clue than anything else. You know, to be perfectly honest, there's very clearly throughout this episode a third alter personality identity, and this is what impresses me about this one is that neither Mark or Steven or Khonshu are aware of the third. And you know, the idea that Mark and Steven right now have the ability to interact through mirrors and, you know, hear each other's voices in each other's heads, it leads me to believe, what's this other alter? Like, how strong is it? Is it like,
Yeah,
is
I
that
didn't want to
genuine
get too far
possession?
into that, just because
Yeah,
I
it's
don't
crazy.
think that plays into this scene.
Mhm.
I think if it is a different alter, then he would just start in that situation being like, what are we doing? But
Right.
it doesn't start like that. He was
Mhm.
going there with purpose, and then it's like, oh, you guys fucked up what I was going to do. So
Mhm.
that's not a third person yet. That I do, obviously there's a third
Yep.
alter that we'll get to, but for that scene, that's why I think it's weird, because it's not playing into what they were doing earlier, which
Yeah.
is you kind of just jump into a situation, and whoever is in control at the moment has to kind of readjust. This was like, oh, you fucked up my thing, and
Yeah.
now I'm gonna get you for that. So that I just found that weird.
Yeah.
But I did like throughout the fight that he was giving more Poe Dameron vibes when he was like, what are we dancing? We fighting? What are we doing here? And it
Yeah.
reminded me of like, so who talks first, me or you? I don't know.
Yeah.
I liked that he got to be like that. Now that we're doing more Mark centric stuff.
Yeah. No,
Uh,
I agree. Those quippy little remarks are just so good. They're so good. I love
Yeah.
them so much. It's just
but you're right.
the self-awareness of the situation is just
Yeah.
addressing it. I love it.
But you're right. He can speak with Steven now. Like anytime there's a reflective service, doesn't even have to be a mirror.
Mhm.
He's got the blade this time. He's gonna do something with the blade, but Steven's like, hey, don't. And then he wakes up in the cab. So I do think that whoever the third alter is took over there, because
Yep.
obviously there was some kind of imbalance that
Mhm.
let that third alter take over.
Mhm.
But all of that to say, I do think something needed to be explained at the beginning. But
Oh, absolutely.
he ends up in the cab, and I do like the cab's response of like, you speak Arabic now? Why were you acting like a tourist before?"
Yeah.
um
Which was weird to me because I'm like, well, doesn't that mean that Steven got into the cab? But then Steven obviously just woke up in the cab, right? So it's just,
Well,
or
Mark
like
woke up in
Mark
the cab,
woke up in
not
the
Steven,
cab.
yeah.
It's not Steven. So
No, so I think
yeah.
I would imagine that whoever the third alter is has a British accent, just like Steven, because obviously that's the third alter that asked out. I feel, was her name Dylan or something? I can't remember, the
Yeah.
woman that worked with him that he went on
Yeah.
or tried to go on the steak date with.
I believe
think-
Dylan is a good guess.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I believe that's who did all that stuff. I don't
You're probably
think that was
right.
Mark.
Yep.
But yeah,
Because it couldn't be Mark. You're right. Because it's like, hey, what's up with the American accent?
American
then all of a sudden
accent,
you
he's
have
not
a
really
British accent.
interested in dating. Like he's got a mission. He just wants to do Khonshu missions so he can, clear
Protect
the red in
Layla.
his ledger.
Yeah, and he's protecting Layla. That's
Yeah.
ultimately what he's doing. Is like his thing is he wants to get back to Layla, but he just doesn't know a way to do it from a safe standpoint.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I think we're on the same page that it's
Mhm.
probably the third that's doing all the like miscellaneous stuff.
Yeah.
Mark seems to be pretty straightforward, not really uh
I agree.
trying to pull the wool over anyone's eyes, really. I think he just wants control and then wants to keep it.
Yeah, it, to be clear, whether or not Mark is truly right from last episode is like, hey, let me get this done and you'll never see me again. We don't know if that's ever going to be true.
Oh,
but
no.
what we do know is that like now Steven is more along for the ride and Mark is just he's just a mission. It's just a mission. He's a mercenary. This is a mission. He stopped the handoff of the scarab, and he's obviously here to stop the rest of this, right? But the thing is, his mission is, I guess you could say, heavily aligned with Khonshu's in that sense, where he's just, but whether or not it's just heavily aligned or whatever, he's just
No,
making
it's
sure
not.
he
It is
does the
just straight
Khonshu
up. He's
mission.
doing what Conscious asking
Yeah, he's
him.
doing the
Yeah.
Khonshu mission.
Yeah. So then he has another break because he catches up with them after getting out of the cab and not paying, and runs after them. Is gonna beat them up again, but Stephen interjects again,
Mhm.
which distracts him enough to get hit on the head, and then we jump again, and we jump to him in the middle of stabbing the guy.
Yeah.
And that's when Stephen and Mark both confirm, well, that wasn't me. And I like that Stephen was like, hey, if you have a problem with the body count, why don't you stop talking to that weird pigeon guy? And then Conchu, I know that they do the whole send the kid off the edge. Maybe he'll talk, or not. Maybe he said specifically he will talk. He doesn't talk. Seems like Conchu kind of knew that already, and he's like, "Oh, I thought he would talk." But then
It seems
he's
like Khonshu just didn't care. Like that's it. Just like, oh, he
Yeah.
probably would talk. He's a kid. He's young enough. Like whatever. But praise Amit.
and then he is like, we need to talk to the Ennead, sorry, and he basically was like, I'll fuck with the sky, that'll get their attention, and then you'll have an audience with them, and you can basically just tell them, hey, you got to stop Harrow.
Yeah. I'll get slapped on the wrist. I'll do something I know is wrong so you could get in front of him.
Yeah. So then he
And-
meets
Yeah.
the Ennead. So there's how many ever gods that are a
9,
part of
right?
that? I don't remember. Osiris is one of them, and Nephthit, who does music and love, I believe. Who's helpful later on. But basically, it's interesting the way it's written, because obviously there's a clear point where Khonshu takes over.
Yeah.
And he's like, spare me your bullshit. Like, I was actually helping humans. You guys turned your back. They did the whole, oh, we can't interfere, and you're way too showy. Like, you've got gadgets, you've got a suit. Like, just what's wrong with you? Like, stop showing off and stop trying to make a thing. Our avatars are just here to observe and then execute in a less showy way when we need them to execute our plans.
But then it's weird that they say that, oh, we're doing that when we need to execute our plans, when they're like, you haven't executed any plans. Like you're just
No,
there
we
to
don't know
observe.
that they haven't.
Well, fair enough. But
I
that's what
would
Khonshu's
imagine-
saying.
I think what they're saying is it's working the way we want it to work, and
Fair enough.
Khonshu just doesn't want it to go that way.
Right. Fair.
I think, yeah, and he's yelling the whole time, and then they even are like, so what's your deal then? And he's like, I accuse Harrow of trying to bring back Amit. And then it's weird, yeah. Like, I mean, not weird. The second watch through, I was like, oh, I see what happened. Because the first time I watched it, I was like, did he just show up when they mentioned him? But obviously they opened up a portal for him to
Yeah, they
join.
summoned him.
Yes,
That's
they
what I
summoned
assumed.
him.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they specifically say we are summoning him. So
Oh, okay.
I missed that the first time. That's I'm glad I watched these 2 times. But so they specifically summon Harrow, and he just turns it right on. Like, he, again, very confidently is like, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm just here in Egypt. I think you should be looking into Khonshu, who's already made a couple of mistakes, and he abused me when I was his avatar, and he's abusing someone who's actually unwell. Like, I think he specifically says he's an unhinged god using an unwell man. And that's when I was like, at this point, and he keeps going like, yeah, like he's really hurt you, and you're broken, Mark. And I feel like it could be either Khonshu or Mark at that point swinging on Harrow.
I agree.
I think that it's obviously written so you're just like, well, that's Khonshu, because at one point they're like, all right, free, like get out of there, Khonshu. Let's actually just speak to Mark. But I'm
Right.
like, I don't know. The way Harrow was talking, that could be Mark or Khonshu swinging on him.
Mhm.
And Osiris stops him and everything, and he's like, all right, you're gone, Khonshu. We are going to imprison you if you do something like that again. Let's just talk to Mark. And that's when they're like, so are you not well? Like, what's the deal here? And he's like, yeah. Yeah. And I was like, yeah, that's a rough one.
Mhm, mhm. It's just this is so rough because I'm like, Harrow is obviously such a master manipulator, right? To be like, hey, yeah, I'm just gonna derail this whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
We were you summoned me here to be accused of this, but then I'm turning it all around this. This is expert
They completely
Darvo
forget
stuff.
about it. Yeah.
It's crazy. It's
Yeah.
crazy to see how effective he is at doing it and how he plays up the victim card for himself and then plays up the victim card for Steven, Mark, and whoever the third alter is. But either way, I'm just like, wow, that was genuinely impressive how that actually happened. And what he says is like, hey, can you really blame me for just wanting to take a stroll through the sands? Is that a crime?
Yeah.
And I'm like, God damn it, this guy's good. And then
I felt like that was the weakest part of what he was doing, but it worked enough to just be like, hey, I'm just here, but then really going deep and showing that again. That's why I think it's well written in terms of like, either way, Mark has lost Khonshu ultimately, because he obviously got under Khonshu's skin, and there's reason to believe he definitely got under Mark's skin, because when he is free to do things, he doesn't have anything smart to say. He's kind of just like, yeah, I'm not well. But Neftut, her avatar, tries to help Mark. Again, another thing that when I was watching the first time, I was just like, what is happening? But she basically says there's a magi that had to take account for where Amit's tomb is. It's in his sarcophagus. If you find the sarcophagus, you'll find the directions to Amit's tomb.
It's interesting to me that they were like, should the gods, like one of the pieces of dialogue that I found really, really striking was like, should the gods ever choose to show mercy or something like that? I'm just like, that's
right.
Really
that's why they had to. Well, because I guess the idea was they were going to kill her. Maybe they would have shown mercy. So let's find, like, we need to keep tabs on her for that. It can't be just unmarked and no one could ever find it.
Right. But what I'm saying is like, oh, okay, so there was a harsh punishment served down, but then there was also this idea of what if we were too harsh, already baked into the punishment. So that was interesting to me. I don't know if that was just standard policy and protocol amongst all god punishments in Egypt, or if that was just a specific case of Ammit, because Ammit provided some use at some point, and we were like, we can't. I don't know, but it was just an interesting thing to me that they baked kind of an exit strategy to their own punishment. It kind of undercuts it, but it's weird. Either way,
maybe that'll play out later. Yeah. So oh yeah, I skipped over a bunch of stuff, but yeah, basically he gets that tip and he's trying to like make his way, and that's when he meets up with Layla. And she's like, just I can help you. I don't remember if it's explained how she knew what he was looking for, or she just knew like, obviously this is what you should be looking for.
Right.
But she gives them an inn, and that's where they are on their way to see that Armand guy who in the comics is Midnight Man. And unfortunately that actor actually passed away in January. I think it was like days after the trailer came out.
He passed away from the skiing accident, right?
Yeah.
That was really sad.
It's kind of a bummer to see him, like his last scene too, like just to jump forward a little bit, like they kind of just throw a dagger at him and he goes off into the night, and you're kind of like, ugh.
Yeah. But I mean, like from a writing perspective, what else could be done? You can't just let him ride off and have that unhinged. But
obviously they can't do anything after the fact, but it was just kind of knowing what I know about him. It was just like, ugh, yikes.
Yeah, it's not a good way to, have your last piece of work viewed But
Yeah,
you know,
but I mean, who knows? It might not be his last piece of work. Maybe it will be some other
right.
stuff. But on their way to meeting this Armand guy, that's where Layla's kind of like probably trying to convince herself, like, I'm not here for you. I'm here to, stop the damage that Amit can do if she rises and kills.
Yeah.
We're just kind of like, yeah, noted. And he does say, I'm sorry for what it's worth.
Mm-hmm.
And they kind of reminisce about their wedding day when the people start dancing on the boat they're on.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, they kind of meet up with this guy, and a bunch of stuff happens. They're trying to look in the sarcophagus for the stuff. Steven is kind of annoying in the scene where he's like, oh no, I'm not gonna help unless you do this. And I was like, ugh.
Well, I mean, yeah, I get it, but it's the only kind of way that he can really exert any kind of power. It's like, oh, I could be
that's
useful.
why I find it.
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah,
I mean, you could just help save the world and talk about it later.
Yeah, but I mean, Steven just clearly wants control and not to kill anyone anymore. I don't think he believes any of this kind of stuff. But he's like,
all the reason I think it's annoying.
Yeah, I agree. But he's also like, ooh, we're a tourist.
Yeah, he's
having
having a good time
right now. Yeah, he's having a good time. He's like, I'm being useful. Like he's having a bit of a blast, but he's being annoying about it. I agree.
Harrow shows up, and this is kind of what you were probably talking about, and what I was talking about is he comes to just basically put a wedge in between Layla and Mark, who are working too well together. Brings up the dad, which we kind of learned about in the end. I said last episode, she seems like she is the MCU version of Marlene, where her dad was killed, except for it was in front of her with Mark there with that character Bushman. But this one seems like there is more of he probably did kill her dad, like probably like a Ronin situation for Echo or whatever, like in the Hawkeye series.
Yeah.
And he just probably is like, I don't want to talk about that. And he won't talk about it basically. But Harrow was like, hey, you deserve to know, and you think that creating this distance is going to help you, but it's not, and he's not doing you any favors by keeping what he knows. And I thought it was a nice move, but it doesn't really amount to much because the fight just breaks out anyway. And it's an interesting fight. The part again that I found annoying was when Steven is like, hey, give me the body in the middle of the fight. And I was like, oh, okay, he's gonna do something smart. And then he's just like, everybody calm the F down. I was like, oh no, I don't like that.
Right.
And then as soon as he gets impaled, he's like, take the body back.
Right. So I mean, I was thinking about that, and it was fun, it was quippy and all that kind of stuff, but and you know the source material better than I do, like way better than I do. Isn't Moon Knight supposed to be kind of quippy and like make these kind of jokes? And like I can't really tell because I can see because I see like snippets of him interacting with other characters where, like, for example, Spider-Man's going like, okay, Mark, hey, and then he goes like, I'm Steven now. I was like, okay, Steven is like, I'm this now, and this is like, and then he just it just seems like he's making jokes at it. So I don't know if that's like them trying to introduce this in without making fun of DID or making it seem like he's, whatever it is. But like, it's just, I don't know if that was what they were going for, because I'm like, I appreciated the comedy beat. It was kind of funny, and to see Mr. Knight again is hilarious. I think it's just hilarious now.
Why he gave up the body? It made no sense.
I don't think it was that he gave up the body. I think it's just to say that Mark or Steven are not as in control as they'd like to think that they are. But when they are in control, like, there's always an element of this could potentially bring back Steven or Mark or whatever like that, right? If they're afraid to look in a mirror,
because they're already showing you when an alter can take over. Like, they've given you enough visual cues about what happens when it's an actual takeover instead of a passing of the baton. He specifically said, give me the body, then he got the body.
Fair enough.
It's versus every other time we've seen it, it's more like there's this heightened thing, and like the eye, and you can't see it when he's wearing, but he didn't convulse, he didn't do anything, he just gave him the body. And it didn't seem that heightened of a situation. Like, Steven was overwhelmed, so whoever that alter was, because I'm pretty sure it wasn't Mark, and when we were in the Alps, takes over and
Right.
then he gets back in.
Right.
But in this one, it was kind of like Mark was just like, okay, and I don't understand what the point of that was, or if it is what you're saying, then it leads me to question the other things they did that felt like good visual storytelling.
Right. So, because to me, the limitation is I think back to this scene and I do remember thinking to myself, I'm like, oh, he's actually doing that convulsing thing, that spasmy thing that he does do, but because he's wearing the full mask, it doesn't look like it, right?
Fair, but they also didn't cut the way they cut. Like
Yes.
it's always like a stutter thing.
Yeah, you're right. They didn't do that like stutter cut thing. You're absolutely right about that. But I'm just like, okay, he's still doing it, and maybe that was just because we forgot this in editing, which is highly doubtful. But
I
like,
don't think that would be the case.
yeah,
But-
which is why I immediately cut it down myself when I said it. But you're right with that split thing that they do, that little effect. It is a very very clear case. But I mean, in this situation where the outfits are clearly different, I didn't think they needed that extra bit. It was just funny to be like, hey, yeah, I'm going to try my way. Okay, it's immediately not successful. You get me out of this situation.
Yeah,
I think that
I do
was
think
just
that
a little
was
bit of fun.
an instance of sacrificing your story for a joke. I didn't think that it worked in that moment because we'd already had the pulling teeth section of like, how can we get Steven to help?
Right.
We already had that. So then to like for him to be like, okay, you can do it, and then he still fucks it up. I was like, no, I don't know about all that, but it worked for you, so that's good. But I just thought that was a weak part of the episode because it took me out of it because I was like, wait, why would he give that up? If you're saying he didn't give up power, then it's weird because he's like, okay, take it back, and I don't know.
Right.
It seems weird. It didn't feel like it flowed logically from what we already knew.
Because like to me, it was the idea that at that point, like, and I guess it depends on how the powers work of the suit, right? Whether or not like, okay, he can take the hits, take the bullets, but does he still feel it? If he feels it, maybe he's distracted, and that allowed Steven to take over for a little bit. And then Steven was like immediately, okay, I'm back. Great. Let me try this thing. I'm going to give up control immediately because it's not working. I have no, because
I mean, the
when
more I
s-
think about it, the more I'm like, why would he even want to take over at that point? Because if they can feel it,
he wants to stop the violence.
but he's in the middle of a very violent situation. It's not like he's off to the side. And
Yeah,
like,
but it's not like it has to make sense. It's
that
because
part
the
does.
whole,
yeah, storytelling wise, yeah, it does have to make sense.
I mean, fair enough, but I two things could be either right. You're right that it was a joke at the cost of the writing and slow things down. For me personally, I thought it was a way for them to be a little bit more sensitive about the comedy aspect of it, because like the first two episodes, don't get me wrong, there's nothing I want to laugh at with Steven. But in this situation, I'm like, okay, he's getting more footing. He knows that he can control the suit. He's protected to a degree, all that kind of stuff. And he's like, maybe if I have power, then I can stop this fight using my words. But no. So I thought it worked well for me, but
I'm glad it
I
does.
could
'cause
see, yeah,
the
I
more
could
I
see
hear
why
it, the
you
more
would.
it sounds bad.
Fair
that he
enough.
thought he could stop it with his words. Like,
Yeah,
what?
but I mean, maybe if I rewatch it, which I probably will tonight, I'll probably see it very, very differently. But I do agree that it does stop everything. It's just like, wait, what? But I think back to like when he was in the Swiss Alps and he's outside the window and he just waves at the guys and the guy's like waving back, and he's like, "What are you doing? Shoot him!" And he's like, "Oh yeah," that kind of thing. It's kind of like I don't know if it's similar to that, but it's just funny how he responds to things.
That in a vacuum works because we don't know what happened before, so we don't know who's in that window.
True.
And so then you can accept that this is ramping up to an action beat versus having the action beat, stopping it, or a joke that, again, the more you explain it, doesn't really make sense to me, even from Steven's point of view.
Right.
Then get back into it because it didn't help me understand anything anymore or like any clearer, right? Like it didn't seem to really affect him enough to be like, oh, I'm in pain. He was kind of like, oh, take it back. Sure, funny line. But then when Mark's back, it doesn't really seem like he's like hindered by it either. It's just kind of like, oh, we just stopped it to do a joke.
Well, I mean,
nothing's gained.
No, he was clearly losing at that point. Like it was
Well,
the
I mean,
fact
it's
that
storytelling wise, nothing is gained. Like
right, right.
it didn't help the story of the fight even.
Right, but I
didn't-
mean, it depends if you needed. So if you needed Mark to just kick everyone's ass, sure, but it seemed like they needed Moon Knight to be slowed down, and the only way they could be slowed down and pinned down and stabbed down is by the horse thing that they were doing, and then only if Stephen, because like it was at that point that Stephen got stabbed and pinned down once,
Mhm.
and then he's like, take the body back, and then Mark just kept getting stabbed, and his hand got stabbed and pinned down and all that kind of stuff, right? So if it needed to happen to slow down the fight so that Moon Knight could be pinned down because Moon Knight was going to
And
kill
what I'm
everyone,
saying is right
then
after
sure.
that, he kind of dusts it all off and just gets up, and it's like a non-factor.
Yep.
That's immediately what happens next.
Yep,
So it
I
didn't-
remember.
It didn't
Yeah,
pin him down. It wasn't like a all hope is lost moment like we talked
Fair
about in
enough.
Peacemaker or anything.
true.
But
But I
it-
mean, it's still the beginning of the second act, so I'm not too mad at it. I feel like if they're still relying on it by the sixth episode, I'm gonna be like, maybe
Yeah.
they should have just.
I agree with you on that. Like,
Yeah.
it is going to be a problem if we're still having beats like that in the sixth episode. Anyway, yeah, they get out of it because basically the turning point is Mark seeing Layla get hit, and then he kind of just powers through.
Mhm.
He beats everybody, and then the next major scene is them trying to figure out the Magi's map on the car, and they can't. So then Mark begrudgingly gives up the body to Steven.
Mhm.
This seems like where you have the comedy bit and then have Steven actually do something right. But anyway, we're not here to rewrite it. But yeah, so Steven pieces it together, and he says, unfortunately, we actually need the stars to align exactly the way they were back then.
Mhm.
And they move over time, so it's not a lot star wise, but it is for our purposes a matter of like miles from being off. So we need it actually to be back like that. And Khonshu is like, well, I remember what they look like, and follows through on that whole Chekhov's imprisonment thing.
Yep.
And messes with the sky again and brings it back 2,000 years so that the stars look like what they did when the Magi took the notes. And there's also some nice moments of Steven and Layla connecting.
Mhm.
Again, just nice to see someone actually like be able to work with Steven and not work against him or mock him.
Oh God, yeah, it's really nice to see that. I'm so glad we're not in London anymore with that manager that Stephen had.
Yeah.
Oh, I hated her.
And then what happens? Well, I guess, yeah, then Khonshu gets imprisoned.
Yep.
And Harrow shows up again. That part, I don't know what happened there. I don't remember. Not that it didn't get explained. I just don't remember how Harrow is just at the pyramid at that point. Being like, are they like, yeah, I don't know why they're kind of like, yeah, we imprisoned him, and then he goes to talk to Khonshu in the imprisoned form.
Yeah, that part made me be like, okay, is Harrow actually influencing the Nine?
I
Like,
believe that's his ultimate goal. Yeah, I do.
yeah, because he's
but I don't
being
know
very
how
successful at it already.
I just don't know why he was called, unless it's what you said, and they were just like, "Hey, what a great guy! Let's bring him back." Because you think they would bring back Mark or something, but maybe not.
No, I
but
don't
yeah.
think that would be the case whatsoever. I think it'd be the case of like, hey, we know that you were victimized by Khonshu at some point. Just want to let you know that he's in prison now and all this kind of stuff. He won't hurt you anymore. You walk through the desert as much as you want.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I feel like you would say that if you're bringing in Harrow and you're saying they're bringing in Harrow because of how he was abused, why wouldn't you bring the person that was just most recently abused as well?
You're
If
absolutely
not
right about that.
Just him.
No, I mean you're absolutely right about that, which is why I'm like, okay, I think there's just slimy action going on here that like some members of the Nine actually want Amit to come back. Some might not.
You said something earlier, which is true, which is they baked something in which probably speaks to Amit being useful to them at one point. So I think you're right. There's probably some people in the Indiad that are like, well, I mean, we used her before. Why not bring
Yeah.
her back? Like, what would it be so bad if she was back?
Mhm.
And if we help, then she won't be mad at us.
Yeah, and the other side of it too is just like, and this is how I see a lot of bureaucracy going, is we're not going to support your actions, but we're not going to get in the way of them because we want them secretly to happen. So we're actually going to get out of your way. You know what I mean? As opposed to directly, okay, we want Amit back. Let's help you out. This is what we're going to do. This is what we're all about. We're actually going to intervene in the humanity now. Versus, we're not, if we don't do anything and let Haro stand by and just do it, then we still maintain our mandate and we get our wishes too. So why would we not do it? Like, why would we do anything at this point? So I honestly think that some people on that council, some of the avatars or their gods truly do want Amit back. And that's what's going to be interesting about this is like, how was Amit used in the first place? Right. Because we know in like through some of the research that I've done, Amit was like a god that was kind of being used by the other gods too, or like something was along the lines.
Well, I don't think she was ever a god. I think she was only ever a demon.
Right. Oh, okay, I see. So yeah, maybe it's that. I don't know what it is, but
otherwise she would still have some kind of presence the way Khonshu does.
True.
But I think she was just a demon. But we'll find out. There's 3 more episodes, so we'll see what they want to do. But yeah, I thought it was interesting that Haro basically says, if you hadn't broken me, I might never know the value of healing, and your torment forced me, so I owe my victory to you. And it's just like, I mean, he's really interested in Khonshu. Almost said, yeah.
It's personal. It's so personal. I'm like, you're not just raising Amit.
But like, even as he's explaining that, it still doesn't feel like he's like up. I mean, I can read into it and be like, he must be upset based on the words he's saying, but he doesn't express it in like this expressly angry or like seething way. It is just, he's just saying it so matter-of-factly. I mean, I think he is tearing up and everything, but I think it speaks to just being like, wow, this guy is really calm in the show.
I think he's just really leaned into the deity role that he's got. I mean, to be able to calmly communicate, I'm sorry, you are not good, nor will you be good, and I'm gonna kill a little old lady right now. And to do that with such a calm voice, I'm pretty sure that that's going to carry over to other aspects of his life too, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So like him calmly, like calm anger is crazy threatening. And I'm like, not that was calm anger to me, but I could see definitely how later on when he does have his outburst, it's going to be paired together with some version of purple magic that's coming out of his cane to attack like he has already.
Yeah.
But yeah. But you're right. His calmness was very. It was weird. Character. It's a very interesting character because I'm like, I forgot to mention this last time, but like, this guy needs a better Mandarin coach if we're gonna pass that off as Mandarin. Because when they spoke Mandarin to each other, I was like,
it was brought up. I could have done without that bad Mandarin. Yeah.
Yeah, it was really bad. It was. He said two lines in Mandarin. It's not hard. Could have done it. He's an actor. It's his job. Could have done it. It was just disappointing. Even Simu said something about it.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, I think it is his job as an actor, but also if you're not being directed properly, then things like that go.
That's true too, because that's just like, hey, the director doesn't know better, and that's a problem.
And I do believe last episode was the episode directed by the 2 white guys.
Right.
But I think that overall is still a stronger episode than this one. But yeah, the Mandarin was not good.
Yeah, the Mandarin was awful. But I mean, yeah, I enjoyed this episode. To me, this is the growing pains of learning how to work with Mark and Steven together, right? And then figuring out who this third identity is and what this third identity is capable of. Whether or not the third
it
identity
certainly
knows the
has
plan.
planted that idea. I don't think that the episode's actually interested in exploring that, but it's certainly
Hmm.
something that you could read into. I mean, it's given you the concept that there is a third, and
Yeah.
Harrow even says, I don't even know how many identities he has. He doesn't know his name. He's Mark in marriage license, he's Steven at work, and all of that's legal, but who knows how many he has. And that plays into what we saw earlier when Mark and Steven both were like, I didn't do that. But I don't think that the episode was actually leaning into exploring any of that. It just kind of was
Yeah.
like, ding, there it is. And that doesn't mean that's bad. I don't think that we quite got there yet. I think
That's fair.
why I don't think this is as strong as it's some table setting, but not a lot of actual executing and moving forward. There's a lot of, we got to go here to get this.
Yep.
And we got it. See you next week.
Yeah. I mean, it's the adventures is part of the fun. But I mean, one thing you brought up earlier too is like, oh, Layla being like, I'm not welcome in Egypt. And I'm like, that didn't really factor in.
Didn't factor in at all. It wasn't explored. She talked about it, but it didn't really seem to affect how she went. I did like that her necklace kind of broke out into what looks like Moon Knight Batarang type things.
Yeah, I was like, cool. That was so cool. I'm like, oh man,
she's a really good fighter and shooter.
Yeah,
I appreciated that.
Yeah, that was crafty. I like that. I was like, that's a weird necklace the entire time she was wearing it. And they're like, oh, it's tactical. Yeah, that was great. That's cool. I like it.
And I like that you learned that she isn't in the comics, she was an archaeologist. In this, she's like, no, I steal back things that were stolen.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's more of an Indiana Jones type thing than it is just like, oh, I'm just a studious archaeologist. She brings everything to the table in that sense.
I think what was really cool about this episode that we didn't get to talk about too is that there was a mention of Madripoor.
Yeah,
I mean, that's just
certainly.
I think it was just cool. It was just a cool Easter egg, but it doesn't really amount to much. It's like, okay, yeah, Steve, Mark Zamerk. That.
No, it was Layla that was in Madripoor, not Mark.
Oh, okay. I misunderstood. I thought they were there together.
The connection is she met the Anton guy in Madripoor.
Gotcha.
And that's what the guy was saying. After your time in Madripoor, I'm sure he's really going to want to talk to you.
The interesting thing to me is the Anton guy in the sarcophagus. Did it seem like it was well protected from the elements to you, or did it seem like it was just like a really cool like canopy that he built?
I would say this: a lot of the episode, including everything to do with the Anton segment, felt like it was just like, well, this is what we have to do. It didn't feel as well thought through. It all goes into me saying it's the weaker episode for me. And that doesn't mean it's a bad episode. There is lots to like in it. I just think it's a bummer because I felt like that second episode put us more on a high, and then this felt like we were going back down.
Well, yeah, because now we don't know the extent of what is like. Can we assume now that Mark and Steven don't have the suit access to the Khonshu powers? I mean, we can assume that now, right? Or no? I mean, that would be the only point of the episode is to take away the suit and take away Khonshu, so that we have to force ourselves to watch what Mark, Steven, and this potential third alter could do in the next episode, right? Without the powers. We
could. I feel like it would have been better if they just made that explicitly clear, or if you were left to feel like that was the case.
I mean, that's kind of how I feel. I'm like, does he still have the powers now? Like, that's what I'm thinking.
You're very engaged in the episode, and so you're giving it a lot of credit for things I don't think it's actually doing.
You're right. I'm definitely reading.
And I don't think you're wrong to say what you're saying, because it's probably what they're doing. But it all goes back to what I was saying about in terms of storytelling. It didn't feel like the strongest storytelling episode. It felt like a lot of Madripoor. here's a very cool setting for
Mhm.
Moon Knight to fight in.
Mhm.
Hey, we need him to be slowed down for a bit, so let's do this bit with Steven that doesn't really make sense, but
Mhm.
at least it slows him down for a second. Like
Yeah.
there's a lot of stuff going on there that feels like it's for show and doesn't really feel like it is in the same essence as the first two episodes.
I do agree with that. And a lot of that reasoning behind that, I feel, is because this is more action heavier episode. So, I mean, in terms of action heavier stuff, it's not that you can't have good writing in it, but it's just that to me, action heavy stuff usually ends up being, we did this fight, we got this MacGuffin, we go here to translate the MacGuffin, we do this to do this. It's like, that's how all those kind of action sequences always work out to me. So like seeing this and actually having fun with the character, as opposed to being like the last two episodes where I was like, oh man, Steven's life is like just got to be so hard, and then trying to figure out this Mark angle. Like I wasn't having fun in that sense, but to see Oscar Isaac actually having fun in this episode, it made me have a lot more fun with it, and that's why I kind of liked it a lot better. Yeah.
Good. Good.
But you're right, though. I will admit the writing is not as strong, but that's because the first two episodes were really strong in terms of the writing.
I don't even know if they're really strong. I just think they're stronger than this third one.
Oh, fair enough.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm still on board. I think this was just a valley, and we're on our way to a peak.
Yeah. I mean, well, if I'm right and that the suit is gone in the next episode, and he's got to figure out how to release Khonshu, then I guess this is the valley. It's a big dip, and that's not going to be great because there's a lot of emotions going to happen next episode, which is probably going to be great because we're going to figure out the Layla thing. Don't know if Mark and Layla are going to get back together yet. Don't know if Layla's going to fall in love with Steven. That seems to be something that's hinted at. Each altar has their own shine and kind of thing that Layla's kind of perked up to, that we know of right now from the two altars that we do know. So I don't know. I think it's going to be a Layla and Mark and Steven heavy episode. And it's going to be kind of cool.
We'll see. We will
definitely
see.
Not really looking forward to the nine gods coming back yet, though. I think they were just
they're going to be a big part of the next episode.
Yeah, I just think they're not going to do much. I think they're just going to die.
They might die.
I just feel like they're going to die by the hands of Ammit, and then Khonshu's going to be like, "See, told you so." And then because they're avatars, they could get more avatars, so it doesn't really matter. So it's great.
No, the gods die. They can't get more avatars. They're dead.
Oh, really? I thought they could just like leave the body and then just go get someone else. Isn't that what Harrow and like
killing the avatar is different than killing the god?
Fair
I thought
enough.
you were saying they were going to kill the god. It's two separate.
What did I say? Did I say kill the avatars or kill the gods?
You said both, so I don't know which one you meant. I mean, yeah, definitely could kill the avatars, but that wouldn't really amount to much. Yeah,
that's true. At this point I would say either. I mean, but some of the gods are going to die. I think maybe, whatever that looks like. But
whatever that looks like, that's the type of stuff you want to inspire when you're doing it.
Well, I mean, like, are we just going to get like, okay, the guy in the suit dies and that's it, or are we going to actually see what Osiris looks like or whatever? Like, like I want to know. I want to know because we see what Khonshu looks like and it looks cool.
But that's their problem with him, is that he's showy, so he will show himself, he will do all the stuff instead of letting his avatar do it. Do the thing. I'm not saying you won't see them. I don't know if we will. I don't have the insight into that, but to me it makes sense that you don't see them other than their statues, because they're constantly shot with their statues. It's just that's their whole thing, is why would you be showing yourself? Why are you like out and about?
Yeah, that's fair. Oh boy.
On that thank you very much, everybody, for listening. We're part of the That Shelf Podcast Network, which means we're a part of the same network as shows like Bad Game Movies, Black Hole Films, Changing Reels. So please head on over there. You'll find those shows. You'll find more shows. You'll find our show. And if you want to hear older episodes of Spoiled Rotten, please go to tdferything.com/spoiledrotten. Our email is spoiledpodcast@gmail.com. Our Twitter is @tdsspoiled. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Radio Public, whole bunch of places. So please rate, review, subscribe, share with your friends. And if we're not where you want us to be, please let us know via email or Twitter.
Yeah, we'll get it over to you in Morse code.
Yeah. Last week offer of transcripts done. Now it's only in Morse code.
Yeah.
Who knows what next week will be, but don't ask for any transcripts because that offer is off the table.
That was 1 week.
Yeah.
And there was 0 offers and 0 requests, and I resented it. So now we're trying to Morse code.
Exactly. So please hit us up and have a great day.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
This has been a TDF Everything production, brah.